All right, let's get creative. Up until now, we've just been using different lighting techniques to see our subjects. To expose them properly, to become better photographer, you can use lighting to your advantage in creating some more creative images. In this lesson, you'll learn about silhouettes, backlighting, flash positioning, and nighttime long exposures. Let's talk about silhouettes. Using the background light to create a silhouette has always been one of my favorite things to do. To get a silhouette, you need to position your subject between you and the light source. Then you expose to the light source. This makes your subject underexposed, and if the backlight is bright enough, the subject will be silhouetted. You can make a silhouette more dramatic in post-editing as well by increasing the contrast and decreasing the exposure of your subject. Here are a few examples of just that. In this shot of Sam, we were testing a large LED panel or a hot light. After testing the light, falling on Sam's face, we moved the light behind him to create a really cool look. In post, I've crushed the shadows to create the darker look. You can see the light peeking around Sam's hat and his sweatshirt, but it really creates a fun silhouette and a creative look. At this wedding, I was able to find an archway in the old Santa Barbara library we were shooting at. I had the couple kiss and focused on exposing the background in order to silhouette them. I feel like in this instance, we are seeing the couple as a couple rather than individuals. They really love this photo. Backlight I tend to use in portraits mostly. Outdoors, this is very useful when having to deal with the sun. A backlight separates the subject from the background and adds a nice glowing halo around your subject. In these portraits, I placed Jenna with a hard backlight behind her. It helps that she's blonde, but the backlight really highlights her and gives her a rim around her head, making her pop out from the background. All this was just positioning her more than anything. If you were to take the backlight away, it would be a completely different looking photo. This shot has some extreme backlight from the sun. I noticed right away when we were walking. The added backlight in this shot let me capitalize on the flare from the sun. Something you have to be cautious about when you're shooting a backlight is getting that light to hit your lens. This can look awesome sometimes and other times take away from the photo. I tend to try and use this at weddings in the afternoon if I can. I think it adds a bit of magic to each shot. When you have a remote off-camera flash, you can put your flash almost anywhere. This opens you up to unlimited amount of creativity in building your light with your flash. Try positioning the flash to highlight certain areas of your scene or subject, parts that you want to draw the attention of the viewer to. In this shot, I placed the remote flash in the bathroom behind our subject. There were not a ton of creative places to shoot in their little house, so the flash lit up the bathroom and I exposed for it, creating a sort of silhouette style photo with a bit of detail in it. You can't see me either in the mirror because I'm standing in the darkness. It was too underexposed to see my reflection. This is an example of taking a not so creative and interesting looking place and turning it into something creative that really works. In this shot, we used two flashes. We had a front flash to expose the front of the cake, and then a remote flash that we set on the ground and pointed up at the cake to give it a backlight. In a somewhat very dark place, we were able to design a look on the spot that looked a bit more fun and creative for that cake. You can see the cake is being highlighted from the back to make it pop. It has a rim, yet we're still gaining a decent exposure on the front from our front flash. These are good tools to keep in mind when you're finding yourself in a position shooting something that just doesn't look the best it can look without a flash. In a future lesson, we'll learn how to do long exposures at night as well. You can really get creative and create light streaks using flashlights or headlamps. What happens is the camera has a long exposure. Because it's so dark, it doesn't capture anything except the light source itself, perhaps some ambient light from a moon or a distant city. If you move the light during the exposure, the camera will capture that exact movement. These are always super fun to do. You will need a tripod and the ability to have a long exposure and a small flashlight. In these photos, we set up the shot with a camera in almost complete darkness, set the shutter to be around 20 to 30 seconds with an f-stop about 5.6, and would run through with a flashlight. Hopefully these ideas can help you take even more creative photos with light.